What's the most up thing a family member of yours has done? NSFW. My cousin tried choking me to death when I was like 6. He also loosened the bolts in put me coffee table, told me to lay under it, and hit it so it fell on me, killed the nerves in my 2 front teeth and had to get them pulled out. But now that fat bastard can't walk and has to wear diapers while spiraling into depression, so it all turned out well in the end. My grandfather had my grandma change her will to cut out my mom 2 years after my grandma had developed full-blown dementia. If your mother had decided to fight that one in court, she likely would have won. There's a reason why wills tend to mention being of sound mind. She did. And she did. My brother stole $500 from my mom yesterday while we were away. She pays his car insurance and has looked the other way when he's taken stuff before, but this was her final straw. Last week my mother and sister were visiting. They're both pieces of work, but they've never done anything that shitty. One day I go out shopping with my sister, who is 13, and we got talking about her dad, my former stepdad. When we stop by a candy store, I tell her, don't you hate it when Jason, her dad, takes his tax? My sister looked at me really funny and asked me to elaborate. I tell her about how he used to demand 15% of everything I got when I was living with my parents while they were married, 15% of my Halloween candy, 15% of my money from my lemonade stand when I was 9, 15% of my tip and wage from my waitressing job when I was 18, on top of paying rent about $700 a month. He even demanded my food when I made dinner. I have specific allergies, so I needed to eat separate food from my family. These aren't the only things he's done, but they're the most cheap. My sister was shocked, and I realized he had only ever done it to me. It was quite jarring to realize I was the only one he was targeting. I have an uncle who molested his daughter and several of my other female cousins. H is not around anymore. My grandfather married his stepdaughter. Not a family member, but my sister's ex-fiancé really charmed everyone in the beginning. We thought he was the sweetest southern gentleman you've ever met. Fast forward a year later, he got my sister into drugs. They lost all their money and moved in with my mom. He would abuse my sister and my mom. My mom wasn't really a hoarder, but she had a lot of things in her home. This man was a neat freak. So while my mom would be at work, he would clean out the house by throwing her belongings into the trash can outside and setting it on fire. These belongings included my late father's things that were sentimental, like his clothes. Also any and all picture albums of our family growing up. He threw away and burned everything. I have no pictures of my dad or myself from when I was younger anymore. We had 2 dogs. One was a German Shepherd from when my dad was alive and one Chihuahua we adopted. He took the Chihuahua and threw her out the window on the side of the road. He let the Shepherd loose out of the house and called animal control about a stray dog. I think that hurt the worst because we had those dogs for years. My mom loved him in the beginning, so she gave him my father's wedding ring because they were going to marry. He pawned that for money. He also sold my laptop for drugs. I blamed my sister for everything for a long time. I let her borrow rent money once, but little did I know that she was going to use that for drugs. She ended up leaving him, but they do have a beautiful child together. That's the only good thing about the whole situation. He is and always will be a monster. My grandmother had 5 sisters. They were all super close. One of them got cancer. This was in the 1960s. They all decided not to tell the daughter, who was 12 at the time of the sick one, that her mother was dying because her father had just died a couple months prior. So the daughter just woke up one day and the mother had died. I mean, it's not completely f***ed up, but it was a bad decision, I feel. My cousin killed his brother and father. He got up one morning, had a glass of milk. I guess it was soured, because he said they were trying to poison him. He shot my uncle in his bed, and then went after Robert. When police arrived, he tried to say that Robert had killed his father and that he took the gun away from him and killed him in self-defense. However, the only place on the gun they could find Robert's prints were on the end of the gun barrel, like he had tried to push it away. He is currently doing life without parole in the Oklahoma prison system. If anyone wants, I will link you to his prison page and the articles from the shooting. Not as bad as some of things on this thread, but this was a dick move. I asked my uncle, who is a mechanic, if he could install new belts on my Honda since it would be much cheaper than taking it to a shop. He told me he would do it for me. I just had to buy the parts. Bought the parts, took the car to him and came back a few hours later. He told me he was finished and I paid him $200 for a $450 job, which was dope. A few days later my cousin texts me a picture of some parts that his dad asked him to put on eBay. They were all the parts that he said he installed on my car. My cousin thought they may be from me since he knew what job his dad was doing for me. I called my uncle and he denied it firmly. I still had the receipt and matched the barcodes to the ones on my receipt, so they were clearly mine. My cousin, who is also a mechanic, installed them for free for me a week later. Uncle still denies it and kept my $200. Don't talk to that pleb anymore even if he's around at family gatherings. At least your cousin sounds like a good guy. My uncle shot and killed his wife and her boyfriend. Then he made a treehouse and hid out for a few months. Well, I have an uncle who always beat his wife, so on one occasion she got into her car and ran him over multiple times. Broken leg, foot, ribs, collarbone, etc. He ended up staying at my dad's house for something like 9 months while he recovered. They got back together. He told her, "Well, ya finally got me back, ya bitch." Jesus. That's almost like a true love story. I was abusive right up until she ran me over a couple times. Love that bitch. My brother threatened to kick in my front door and kill me 6 months pregnant. My husband and 2-year-old son. He had stolen the phone I had purchased for my dad and I turned it off. He wanted me to turn it back on. Meth is bad, kids. My aunt married a guy a few years back. He was a pathological liar and lied about literally everything for no reason. Tried to convince everyone he was in the military black ops and that there was no record of him because it was secret. He also did a lot of other up stuff like threatening our family members and friends, and other things. He actually even tried to kill my uncle and my 2 cousins, but got his ass properly beat down with a baseball bat. Long story short, my aunt ended up divorcing him later cause he was an all-around and he came to her house, rang the doorbell, then shot himself in the head with a handgun right on her doorstep. Real up. A cousin of mine put a switchblade to my throat when I was about 8 to scare the shit out of me. It worked. Almost literally. One of my uncles borrowed $20,000 from my other more successful uncle to start a business and refuses to pay his more successful brother back because he's got so much money already. The more successful uncle refuses to sue him because that's not what family does, but they are no longer on speaking terms. Your successful uncle sounds like a truly great guy. I was deployed twice overseas and each time I returned home not a single member of my family ever came to see me return. I was the only person returning with my group that had no one there to greet me. The entire 4 years I was stateside, not a single member of my family came to visit. One of my older brothers married a girl from Samoa and my parents flew there for their wedding. My other older brother is in the army and my parents have traveled to attend all his major military events. I come from a very conservative Mormon Catholic family in Wyoming and we have generations of veterans in our family. I was the only member in my family to obtain an Eagle Scout and graduate from college. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I've finally made peace with myself after years of battling sadness mixed with anger. Now that I have my own son, I realize now that what I went through was lesson to ensure my son will never experience what I had to go through. My sister who ran away from home once put my cat in the refrigerator when she was in high school. What kind of psycho shit? I had a cousin who was addicted to heroin and his parents were always doing stuff to bail him out and keep him from being homeless. One time they put down a deposit and paid rent for a furnished apartment for him. He ended up selling the furniture for drug money. Another time they rented a mobile home for him and couldn't figure out why the water bill was so high. Turns out he was charging his homeless friends $1 to take a bath shower and that was going on pretty much around the clock. Mobile home bath house. I'm imagining a line out the door lol. Imagine the line around the tub.